everyone! One thing about me is that I love hamsters. I have a hamster, her name is Willow. She's my entire personality, my baby, my everything. But she's not actually the first hamster I've ever owned. I've actually had 3 hamsters before her, and in total, I have over 5 years of experience being a hamster owner. Because hamsters are such a big part of my life, and I know you guys are curious about me and my real life, I figured I'd do a little story time on some of my interesting experiences owning hamsters. I had one hamster who was low-key a little TikTok famous. I had another who was a YouTube chef wannabe. It's all pretty interesting. So without any further ado, let's start at the very beginning with my very first hamster, Acorn. I got Acorn when I want to say 9. I was either 9 or 10 when I got Acorn. I unfortunately don't have any pictures of her, which I'm so upset about. But I remember she was like a neon orange hamster. Like, she looked like a freaking Cheeto. She was so bright orange. And I did unfortunately get her from PetSmart, and for about half of her life, I think, she lived in a little critter trail cage. I genuinely did not deserve Acorn because I was so young at the time. I really didn't know much about proper hamster care, and for those of you wondering, for those of you who are fellow hamster lovers, I am an advocate for proper hamster care. I'll get more into that later, but at this point I was young, I didn't have much money, I didn't know what I was doing. All I knew was I wanted a hamster, so I got a hamster. But yeah, she was from PetSmart in this tiny critter trail cage, and like I was saying, I did not deserve her. She was so sweet. I genuinely don't think she ever bit me, not once. If I had had some sort of bad experience with her, I would not have gone and gotten any more hamsters after that. Like, I would have been done, because that's just the kind of person I was, and I mean, kind of still am. I'm working on it, but if I have a bad experience with something, I'll tend to just stay away from it and never really give it a second chance. So Acorn could have totally pushed me away from hamster owning, but she didn't. She was so sweet. Like, to give you an idea of the kind of stuff I did as a kid because I didn't know better, I would wake her up in the middle of the day to play with her because I was bored. Would you want to be woken up in the middle of the night by like a giant pair of hands? No, you wouldn't. She would sit there and like chew on the bars of her cage and climb on them, and I'd be like, oh haha, she's so cute. Like, no, she's not cute, younger Jasmine. She is being neglected. Somewhere between 6 months and a year into owning her, I was like, maybe she should have a bigger cage. Maybe this isn't the greatest. So I enlisted my dad's help in building a bin cage. While it was an upgrade, it really wasn't much of an upgrade. There was barely any bedding depth. It wasn't all that much better. One thing I vividly remember Acorn doing in this cage was she would move all her bedding to one side of the cage. Like, there'd be a giant mountain of bedding, and then she would sleep in it and burrow in it as much as she could, and I would be like, oh, you silly hamster, what are you doing? You're making a mess. And I'd move all the bedding back. I now realize that was probably her trying to make her own bedding depth so she could burrow like she's supposed to, which is actually so freaking sad. Oh my gosh. Another reason why I was so obsessed with hamsters at the time is I feel so bad for this person. I am so slow. I had 2 close friends at the time, and they both actually had hamsters as well. In class, we would write little stories about our hamsters. We would pretend they were all superheroes. I was really weird when I was at that age. Like, I remember I would dig around under this big tree for worms, and me and my friends would dissect worms. We started this club called the Nature Club. It wasn't really a club, we would just play around at recess, and we would like worship this giant tree that we named Branchy, and we were like obsessed with these rocks that we thought were a couple, and we were like so exclusive about it too. There was this one girl that we really didn't like, but she wanted to join the Nature Club, and we were so rude to her for no reason. But I'm totally getting off track. But back to Acorn. She was just great, such a great experience to have her as my first hamster. The reason I'm doing an entirely different race right now in a different area is because I just realized I completely forgot to talk about Acorn's passing, so I'm doing that now really quick. So I had Acorn for probably around a year and a half. My guess is she was around 2 years old when she passed, and she passed very peacefully. She looked calm. I was, of course, devastated because I was like 10 or 11, probably 11 by then. I went out and I bought DIY gravestone kit, and I made her a little gravestone that is still in my backyard to this day. I'll put a picture of it on the screen. And where Acorn is buried is actually the gravesite of all my hamsters. I didn't have any super notable experiences with her, though, that I can think of, unlike my next hamster, Ginger. Ginger was very similar to Acorn in color. She was also pretty neon orange, which, like, since then, I have not seen a single neon orange hamster. Why were they literally neon orange? I don't know. So Ginger was the wannabe YouTube chef that I was talking about. Around, I want to say, maybe 6 months into having her, I was like, you know what? I want to be YouTube famous, and I am going to make a YouTube channel with Ginger. So me and Ginger had a little channel. I'm not going to tell you guys the name of it. It is still up, I will say, but all the videos are privated, so you won't be able to see them. We never got many subscribers. We didn't get popular, okay? That's why I said she was wannabe YouTube famous, because we never actually got there. It wasn't even her that wanted to be YouTube famous. She did not want to be there. It was just me. I wanted to be YouTube famous. We would make little, like, under 5-minute long YouTube videos with the help of my dad. Bless him. He was so supportive. And we would film me making these little hamster treats and then feeding them to Ginger. And of course, we always filmed this during the day when Ginger was supposed to be sleeping. So we would be waking her up, and she did bite me quite a few times during filming. She was not as sweet and gentle as Acorn was. She had attitude, she had spunk, she was a little sassy, and she did not put up with me as much as Acorn did, but she had every right to. I was just terrible, and she lived in the same bin cage that Acorn did during her entire life. She unfortunately never got to see any cage upgrades. Now, one of my most notable memories with Ginger was the way that she passed, which is kind of upsetting. Now, unlike Acorn, Ginger did not pass peacefully at all. Something that I forgot to mention earlier was that Ginger had actually, when she was in PetSmart, she had been put into a cage with another hamster, which is a huge no-no, but Ginger was put in a cage with another hamster. They got into a fight, and the hamster scratched her eyeball really badly. So when I got Ginger, I actually got papers with, like, her medical records, because they had taken her to, like, their little vet or something. So throughout Ginger's life, sometimes her eye would get crusty and a little inflamed, but I didn't do anything about that, because did I have money to take her to the vet? No, I was 10. And also, I don't know, she always seemed to get over it. Her eye would look kind of bad for a couple days, but then it would be fine again. Before she passed, her eye was really not doing well. And when she passed, I found her with, and this is a little graphic, she had blood all over her body. It looked like she had bled to death, honestly. It was gross, and it was very scary to see as an 11-year-old. I think I was at the time. And that honestly kind of put me off from owning hamsters for a while. And when I say a while, I mean quite a number of years. My next hamster, Mona, I got in 2021, I think. I remember it was summer of 2021, and for some reason, I just could not stop thinking about hamsters. They were in my mind 24/7. I was so hyperfixated on them, and, like, I just woke up one day and I was like, I really want a hamster again. I miss them. I started watching hamster videos on YouTube to fulfill that need to have a hamster, and I stumbled across the woman that I credit for all my hamster knowledge, honestly. I love her so much. And that is Victoria Rachel. The more I watched her, the more I realized that I really wanted hamsters again. I felt like I needed to redeem myself as a hamster owner, if that makes sense. Because I had loved hamsters so much as a kid, and I had done them dirty. I really had. So I needed to prove to myself and to my deceased hamsters that I could be a good hamster owner. So I started looking on Craigslist for hamsters. When I tell people that, they always laugh because they're like, what do you mean? Like, that's weird. That's kind of creepy that you got a hamster off Craigslist. But there are actually a lot of pets on Craigslist. There's dogs, cats, hamsters. I'm sure like every animal you can think of is on there. Obviously, you should be very careful when you're getting something off Craigslist, but it isn't always super sketchy. I got Mona from this super sweet lady. She had gotten a hamster that she didn't realize was pregnant, and one day she had hamster babies, so obviously she couldn't support all those hamster babies, so she had to sell them. And that's how Mona came to be. I cannot find any more animals for the life of me. Oh my gosh, where are they? Mona was truly something special. 2021 and 2023 were the hardest years of my life for so many reasons. I was struggling so much with my mental health. I was in and out of various different therapy programs, just trying to get better. I didn't know what was wrong with me, and I'm getting a little emotional. And Mona was there for me through all of it. Maybe this sounds stupid to some people, but you know how you can have like your heart horse, your like heart dog, like whatever, your pet that truly understands you, and like you can have how many ever animals after them, but none of them will be able to replace that heart pet. It's like you guys had a special connection. That was Mona for me. Mona was just the best possible thing for me at that time. But back to the beginning of me having Mona, I didn't really think I would ever have a hamster again, so I had thrown out all my old hamster stuff, which was probably for the better. I didn't have a cage, I didn't have any toys, so of course I had to do something about that. I ended up once again enlisting my dad's help in making a bin cage. This one was so much better though. It was just an overall good cage. It wasn't the best cage ever, but it was good. It was really good for my budget at the time. So Mona was the TikTok famous hamster that I was talking about. And when I say TikTok famous, take it with a grain of salt. She only amassed about 1,500 followers, and I was probably active on her account for a good few months. So she wasn't super famous or anything, but she did get free products from this Etsy shop one time, and she reviewed it. I reviewed it. She didn't do anything but sit there. So that was cool. That was like the highlight of her career on TikTok. And her account's also still up if you want to try and find it. It is a private account though, and I won't be accepting any followers. I'm really not active on there anymore, obviously, because Mona's dead. But even like several months before she passed, I hadn't really been active on there. I'm just gonna do this race over and over because it gives 250 XP each time. So if this race gets a little repetitive, I'm sorry. Doing TikTok with Mona though, I really credit that for inspiring me to start a Star Stable TikTok and then this YouTube channel. It really got me comfortable in the space of social media and kind of understanding how algorithms work and just how to get yourself out there. Moving on from TikTok though, about a year I would say into owning Mona, she started displaying boredom signs in her cage. She started to chew at like the wire mesh that was covering it, and I knew I had to do something about it. I didn't want to just ignore it and pretend everything was fine like I had with my past hamsters. So I saved up quite a big sum of money, and I once again enlisted my dad's help. Shout out to him. He has been so freaking supportive throughout my whole hamster owning journey, and I got him to build me a big cage made of wood. I will put a picture of it up on the screen. It's quite impressive. There's a big thing of plexiglass in the front. That cage costs a pretty penny, but I have no regrets. It was pretty apparent to me that Mona was starting to slow down. I was so anxious that she would pass before the cage was done, but she didn't. She lived a good 6 months in that cage, I think. Actually, it wasn't a year into owning her she started showing boredom signs. It was probably like a year and a half, because Mona lived to be like over 2 years old, which was the longest I think any of my hamsters had lived. During the last couple months of her life, though, I could really tell she was slowing down, so I was really spending a lot of time with her, appreciating her. If you have a pet that is starting to slow down, I know it can be really hard. You just have to really cherish the time you have with them. I remember the day Mona died, the night before I spent time with her, because she had stopped eating and drinking pretty much, so I knew her time was coming. I was giving her water through like a little eyedropper, but she wasn't really taking much of it, so I was just kind of cuddling with her, petting her. I'm getting sad because this was like less than a year ago. Something in me just knew that it would be the last day I would spend with her, and it was. The following day I had classes, so I purposely didn't check her cage that morning because I knew that I would find her dead, and I just couldn't handle that. I needed to go to class. I didn't want to be crying the entire time. And I knew once I saw her body, it would set in and I would be really sad. So it's like I knew, but it hadn't kicked in yet, really. And I got home, and sure enough, her body had gone into rigor mortis, I think it's called, which is where like the joints or whatever freeze up and they're really stiff. It happens a couple hours after they pass. Her body was cold, and it was clear to me that she had passed in her sleep the previous night. So she definitely was dead that morning. And it was hard. It was really hard. I was sad. I think I took about like a week to just kind of grieve her before I started looking for a new hamster. It was so weird because I had this routine every night. I would either feed Mona fresh food like a carrot or lettuce or something, or I would give her her food mix and some mealworms, and I would refill her water, and I didn't need to do that. It was so weird. Mona was, of course, buried in the backyard with my 2 other dead hamsters. It's like the hamster graveyard back there. And my week-long grieving process before starting to look for another hamster, that might be short to some people, that might be long to some people, you know, everyone grieves differently. But with my past 2 hamsters, Acorn and Ginger, I grieved for like a day before I got my next hamster. Well, not Ginger, because obviously I didn't get a hamster right after Ginger, but when Acorn passed, I was sad for like a day, and then the next day I literally cleaned all of her stuff and went to PetSmart and got my next hamster. But it was so quick. I really got over Acorn fast. I was actually doing YouTube when Mona passed. In one of my videos, I think it's the one where I'm buying the like horse that came out for Star Stable's birthday, the really cute one, and the title was like buying the cutest horse in Star Stable or something like that. In that video, I literally mentioned how I had a deceased hamster in my freezer. Now we're all done talking about deceased hamsters, and we get to talk about my current one, Willow. I feel like Willow is a little sassier than Mona was. She definitely has more personality. Unlike Mona, Willow grew up in not really as good of a home. The person who I bought Mona from was very well educated on proper hamster care. She made sure that I had the ability to care for Mona properly before I bought her. Mona had a really good upbringing, which is honestly why I think she lived for so long. Willow, though, I don't really know if she came from PetSmart or what. I don't know what happened. She lived in a cage with one other hamster in the home she was living in when I went to buy her. It was a tiny, like, critter trail cage, not very good. And there were like these dogs that were just barking so much, and it was just probably a really stressful environment for Willow. Luckily though, I was able to take her and bring her to a better home. Willow has not had as eventful of a life as Ginger or Mona. She has not had any sort of social media career. She's just kind of chilling, you know. I feel like owning Willow has been kind of a new chapter in my life. Like when I had Acorn, I was going through my lowest lows. And when she passed, it really felt to me like I was putting aside or leaving behind that chapter of my life and moving into the next chapter with Willow. And if you're kind of struggling mentally right now, this is like not, this was not going to be the point of this video, but it will get better. I know that firsthand. Hamsters are just really underappreciated. They can be such smart, such sweet creatures, and I am just so grateful that I've gotten to experience having so many different hamsters. I feel like a lot of this might only be interesting to fellow hamster owners, which I don't know how many of you guys are. I have no idea how many people are going to watch this video all the way through, because it's kind of just me sitting here babbling on about hamsters. But I love them, and I wanted you guys to see a little bit of a glimpse into my personal life. If you got this far in this video, thank you so much. People like you are the reason I make these videos. Just being able to entertain people, or just give them something to listen to while they're training or watch while they're eating breakfast, it means so much to me. You guys don't even know. If you'd like to see more about my real personal life, feel free to follow my Instagram. Lately, I've been posting highlights of my real life, including pictures of my pets. I love you guys so much. Goodbye.